until after the wedding.
But shouldn't a man love you for who you are in spite of everything?
How quaint. Tell me, Cinderella, what would you say to capture the prince?
I don't know.
Of course you don't.
For those who aren't familiar with that clip, that was Brandy playing Cinderella, and the film dropped in, I believe, like the late 90s. But I was talking about this on my TikTok live recently, about Brandy really being a pillar in, music and in entertainment. But I also highlighted the fact that Cinderella was, something that she did that crossed over, and it was so good. And it was just great to see that representation, especially with such a classic story and a classic movie such as Cinderella. But the reason why I wanted to bring that conversation of Brandy playing Cinderella over here and more so do an analysis is I want to talk about the dynamic between Cinderella, her evil stepmother, and her evil stepsisters. But in particular, I want to highlight a section in the book known as envy by proxy. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hop right into this analysis. So in the story of Cinderella and her evil stepmother and evil stepsisters, and in relation to envy by proxy, I want to talk about how in certain environments, and this is prevalent in groups, so a group setting could be a friend group, it could be, in a professional setting, but this also runs rampant in familial settings where you realize that there are certain people in that particular group that gets a limitless amount of support, but everything that you do is viewed as an opportunity to compete and upstage. And what oftentimes fuels this kind of conflict is there is a person in a prominent position who's fueling the division. And this is oftentimes because it may not be appropriate for them to compete with you, and they may want to preserve their image and reputation, but they will use pawns similar to the game of chess to do their dirty work. And this is where the envy by proxy becomes prevalent. So to start, the book actually addresses the story of Cinderella in chapter 3, which talks all about knowing your opponents and addressing different types of envious people. And the section about Cinderella states, since we are on the topic of evil, we can also discuss Cinderella's evil stepmother and stepsisters. These envious characters capitalize on their target's inability to perceive their beauty, fortune, and favor. In this way, they strategically manipulated circumstances to use the target of envy for their resources, while simultaneously depleting the target of utilizing their own resources. An earlier chapter of this book, it talks about why it's so important to understand what valuable assets you bring to the table, because underestimating yourself can put you in harm's way more than overestimating yourself. And like I stated, the book goes into more detail as far as what's meant by that point. But another section that I want to read from is the envy by proxy section to further depict the dynamic between Cinderella, her evil stepmother, and stepsisters. The envy by proxy tactic is used when a person who is envious uses another person or other people to do their dirty work on their behalf. This is a tactic often used by people who have a severe concern with their image. So to keep their hands clean, they use another individual to sabotage their target of envy. The other person is appointed based on their mutual feelings of envy for the identified target.
I was unwise with eyes unable to see. I fell in love with everlasting. But love fell out with me.
And what makes someone utilizing the envy by proxy tactic even more dangerous is their ability to capitalize on the target's inability to perceive their own worth and their own value. So as we see in the movie Cinderella, the evil stepmother and evil stepsisters were constantly exploiting Cinderella from her kindness, her service, and they were also ostracizing her in the same token. So they were benefiting from her labor, her kindness, her generosity, but always excluding her from events, from gatherings, from circles that would benefit her as well. A lot of people may find themselves staying in these situations that continuously exploit them and ostracize them, even though these people who are putting them in harm's way are constantly benefiting from them. They find themselves staying in those situations because they can't wrap their head around why that person has such hostility towards them, or is constantly trying to put them or keep them in a position of inferiority. And the reason oftentimes is because the person may feel like you benefit, or you would benefit in ways that them and other people that they can relate to can't. That's why they'll go above and beyond to partner with, to uplift and encourage individuals that they don't necessarily perceive as a threat. And it's because there's a relatability component there. They may feel like that they have the same struggles, they have the same issues, or they don't experience the same benefits that you do. And this is also prevalent in the calculated cosine technique section listed in the book, where it dissects why certain people receive praise and cosines over another person. And it's really designed to take a jab at the targeted individual's self-esteem and confidence. The reason why I wanted to hone in on the envy by proxy piece is because some of you all may actually be dealing with this, as I stated before, in family settings. It could even be in a professional environment. But there have been cases where I heard about people who had a friend's parent that they were really fond of, and they would confide in this parent, but this person exploited their vulnerability and their transparency to put their child in positions of superiority while keeping you in a position of inferiority. And this is why you have to keep your circle tight. The moment that you realize, and the book addresses this as well, but the moment you realize that certain aspects of your life, elements, information is being leaked to someone who you know doesn't like you or has posed a concern for you in the past, you have to figure out who the common denominator is. And once you realize that this is a pattern, you have to get out of la-la land and identify that this person may not be an ally to you, but they may actually be an enemy. People are confused as to why somebody who they've been nice to, why somebody that they've been patient with, that they've helped out, is fueling the division with somebody who you know doesn't like you, doesn't care for you, and has hurt you in the past. And it's because they're using that person as a pawn to do their dirty work. They are also envious of you 9 times out of 10. They also harbor ill intentions for you. But in order to preserve their image, they will use other people to complete the task on their behalf. And also, too, when we talk about envy, envious people don't like the idea of losing access to the person that they're envious of. So if they can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, for lack of better words, by using someone to do their dirty work so they can preserve their image, but also maintain access to you so that they have intel on your whereabouts, on your goals, your progress in life, the better. Another thing to note too is this can be significant in a professional environment. You may realize that there are certain people who get resources and access to environments and opportunities that you don't, and you have to understand that this is intentional. I also know that a lot of you guys deal with this in your family. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if this dynamic sounds prevalent, like it hits close to home to you, the likeliness of these people turning around and shifting their intentions and treating you with kindness and generosity and consideration is slim to none. And the reason being that typically envy is the root cause of the issue. So I hate to break it to you, babes, as far as getting real assistance and consistent assistance with your endeavors, your aspirations, and your goals, it's typically not going to happen. And the reason why you find yourself in a state of confusion is because when they do pop in and they're nice and they're quote unquote love bombing you, kind of like the narcissistic abuse cycle, but they're love bombing you to get that access again. But them gaining access is just about them receiving intel and information about where you are in life so they can take that information back to the drawing board, engage what their next move is going to be and what new goal that they're going to set so that they can try to compete with you and upstage you. And the sad part about it is that this cycle typically does not end. The only way out is for you to take initiative and break the chains. So you have to implement measures on your own behalf to separate yourself from the toxicity and to reclaim control of your life, your favor, and your overall progress.
Why would a fellow frothy little bubble with a flimsy kind of charm, and with very little trouble I could break her little arm. Oh, why would a fellow want a girl like her, so obviously unusual? Why can't a fellow ever once prefer a usual girl like me?
And as we could see in that clip, it wasn't until Cinderella finally took a chance on herself and snuck out and went to the ball. And she ended up gaining favor. And that's exactly what her evil stepmother and stepsisters didn't want. Now, of course, her evil stepsisters ended up seeing what happened, and they started to show their animosity and their disdain towards Cinderella. But nevertheless, it goes to show that there are instances where we have to take initiative to break free and capitalize on our favor and on certain opportunities. Because people who are envious of you are not going to help you get there, babes. You have to do it yourself. All right, babes, so that's all that I have for this analysis on Cinderella, but Cinderella in relation to her evil stepmother and stepsisters. And in particular, talking a little bit more about envy by proxy and how it's used as a tactic by envious people. So I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to yet another analysis. Of course, I want to hear you all's comments, perspectives, and opinions in the comment section below. And I look forward to speaking to you guys in the next one. Take care, babes.